Okay, so we've done our technical difficulties work through. We are going to see if I can bring her in on the actual iPad. I think we finally figured it out, you guys.
I sure hope we did.
Hey, good evening, everyone. I am Victoria Nicole. We do apologize for the delay on tonight. This is our third take on our interview with Miss Queenie. She is going to come in on tonight and share with us her situation as it pertains to child abuse from the ages of 11 to 15. As you guys know, I like to start off every broadcast with a couple statistics, and those being here in the state of Alabama, every hour on the hour there is an allegation of child abuse and neglect. And child abuse and neglect is the number 8 health concern here in the state of Alabama. We as African American women are 2.5 times more likely to enter into a domestic violence relationship than our counterparts. Also, 1 in 3 women before the age of 18 will be sexually abused, and every 9 seconds, sexually abused, and every 9 seconds of someone is being abused. So, we are trying to bring in Miss Queenie on tonight.
I'm here. Y'all can hear me now, right?
No, we can hear you on here, but you got to join the broadcast.
All right. Okay. I'm about to do it. So, all right. I'm looking for you now. So
Okay.
give me one moment. All right. So what I am doing is I'm looking to see that you are live.
I am live. And as she's doing that, just let you guys know, the purpose of the confessional room is to allow for women to come in here and share their stories. We know that we overcome by the testimonies that we give for other people. That is what I believe, and that is what we believe at the Confessions of a Lady. And if you don't know what the Confessions of a Lady is, it is my nonprofit organization where we speak out against domestic violence and abuse, concentrating on those girls ages 7 and up who have been sexually abused, molested, and or raped. Also, from there is a spinoff where we are currently in the confessional room. Where's my finger tonight? Right here. Right there. You see it. And so, thank you so much for joining us on tonight. Be sure to like, comment, and share. No question is a dumb question. We know that many people will never actually comment, but they will watch this video and know that they are not alone. So, if you have any questions for myself or Miss Queenie, do not hesitate to leave them in the comment section. Maybe this video isn't for you. Maybe you're not a part of that statistic range. Maybe this has nothing to do with your life. You live the best life that you could have. But there is someone I know on your timeline who has gone through these situations, and maybe about Miss Queenie's overcoming, it may help them to realize that life is worth living. Miss Queenie?
Yes, ma'am.
I don't know what happened.
I don't either, but we are late, but not totally denied, honey. We are here.
Mama, we made it.
Can you hear me okay, though?
Yes, we can hear you loud and clear. Yes.
Awesome. That was wonderful.
All right, guys. So I was telling these people a couple of trials ago that I met you when I was probably like 20, 21 years old through a female relative of mine. And you became like a bigger auntie to me. And I'm just so thankful that you decided to come in here and to share your story. We never know. Me being Victoria, I never believed that I'd ever meet people by happenstance. It's always on purpose because God is an on purpose and intentional God. And so when I reached out to you, I was like, maybe this ain't for her. Maybe she's gonna say no. But lo and behold, one of them few.
Right.
I'm gonna start talking proper again because I've been out of control lately. But you were one of those few people who said yes. And I want to start off by saying thank you for saying yes. These are not topics that many people like to share. In our community, we believe that what happens in this house stays in this house. You don't tell our business because this is our business, our family business. We're gonna deal with it accordingly, and which ultimately means that we don't deal with it at all. We just brush underneath the rug. And when we do things like that, just picture a rug and you throw in your depression, your anxiety, your molestation, your abuse, your attacks, your anxiety, you're trying to commit suicide, every person who ever touched you, every person who gave you a bad look, every negative word that was spoken underneath you. At this time, you got a big pile. And at some point, it's going to rupture and it's going to spill out. And so I never understood, and I will never try to understand why we used to tell each other, especially our parents and grandparents, what happens in this house stays in the house, because it doesn't. you leave home, feeling one way, and then it matriculates into other relationships, and now you don't understand why you can't go to a certain place, or a certain smell may trigger you, because you never dealt with the root of those issues. And so now you go from one toxic relationship, which is one of your groups, one toxic relationship, to another toxic relationship with one person, because you're trying to figure out, why am I attracted to this type of person, not knowing that you're attracted to them because something was implanted into you very long ago that you never dealt with. And so it's bad for you, but you also feel that it's good for you.
Right.
Make sense?
Right.
So
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
so Miss Queenie, if you would please just share with the people who you are, where you're from, and then jump right into it. We really don't have a script here in the confessional room. We just do open dialogue. We just talk.
All right, perfect. Well, thank you, Victoria. Little niece, thank you, girl. I definitely appreciate you bringing me into this discussion. And yes, you're right. It's a conversation that makes a lot of people unhappy or uncomfortable, right? So they feel like maybe we shouldn't be talking about that, or maybe just leave well enough alone, or maybe just share that kind of in-house, if at all, or keep it to yourself altogether. But what I found in doing that is that, as you say, we suffer, and we suffer big time, even if it's in silence. But it shows everywhere throughout our life, and other people may not recognize it, but we know where it's coming from. The source is the pain that we're carrying from being sexually assaulted, molested, and or neglected and abused. So thank you so much for allowing and providing this platform for us to have these discussions. And many people will probably be like, "Oh boy, Queenie be airing her business." Well, for years I didn't have a voice. So, and I was living in shame, and I was silent. So I decided that I was not going to continue to do that. And I feel like we'll find our tribe whenever we want to talk about certain things, and those people will accept our truth. So, yep, I'm Queenie. I'm originally from Philly. Grew up in North Carolina. Been in Virginia now for, I don't know, maybe almost 18 years. My daughter's 18, so almost 18 years. So I've made the DMV my home, which is where you and I met, here in the DMV. Yeah. So, and yes, you're right. So I experienced the grooming process probably started when I was about 10 and a half, 11, once my grandmother became sick. So yes, from 11 till about 15, I endured some sort of sexual abuse, or some sort of abuse by the hands of the people that say that they care for you or love you. And I began to, I acted out. I suppressed it. I mean, I fought all the time. I did all those different things as a young woman. And probably in my late 20s did I decide that I was going to actually start speaking up and speaking out, and calling people out for what they did to me. And you talking about shaking up family and shaking up friend circles. I mean, it was right. So it was really interesting how I would address certain topics within my family, and they just would, I mean, I know it was hurtful because they couldn't believe what had happened, or maybe they didn't even want to believe me. Well, they didn't believe me when I was a kid anyway. But it's interesting how it really made them uncomfortable, and they couldn't believe that these people that I was calling out had done something to me. Um, and the unfortunate piece in all of that is, what that did for me is it didn't allow me, the victim, to truly get the healing that I needed then, because they were ignoring it. And it was like they were protecting the person that assaulted me in each case, because those people they couldn't believe that they did it, right? And so it was kind of like they wanted to protect them more, and not really, as the church folks say, scandalize their name. I'm so delivered from that foolishness that don't even bother me anymore. I'm like, no, you call a spade, right? You call people out for what they've done to you. If you have that opportunity, because some people don't have the opportunity, but for me, I had the opportunity. So that's when I started talking, and that's when people got uncomfortable. So here I am today, the host of Bar Talks, that talk about all things uncomfortable. I do not mind.
So let's break it down another step, and Miss Queenie, Auntie Queenie. When you say grooming, what do you mean about grooming? Because a lot of people won't. What I want this to be, or what I want people when they watch this, is to actually see themselves. So as many details that you're willing to share, or where they can go get more information about the story, please share that and put your put your link to your group if you want them to join in the comments so I can pin it so they can join if they would like. But break it down for the people, because a lot of people, as you know, will live in denial for a very long time. For me, I lived in denial because I was like, well, maybe because I read a lot of books and they kind of on the sexual side, maybe I'm just imagining these things. But when my abuser would touch me, or when she would say certain things to me, I would always go back into a child's place or take me back to a little person. So those are triggers for me. So when you say grooming, Queenie, what do you mean by that?
So for me, my understanding of grooming and my experience with grooming was the process of my first experience was a gentleman that was very much, he was very small in stature because I was a young girl at the time. And so we were already kind of on what looked like an even playing field. But I was a target, first of all, because my mother was a drug addict and she was always intoxicated. And so she always entertained. And so it was easy for me to be that target. And he was more on my size, my stature. He was kind of immature, but he was an old man. And so the process was constantly just playing with me, being very friendly with me, always taking me to the store, always smiling and grinning with my mom. And again, it wasn't that my mother didn't notice something was not natural about this. She just was paying more attention to herself. And so it was a perfect opportunity for him to make me his buddy. And because I didn't have that nurturing environment at that time, because I lived with my grandmother until my mother was just something I landed having to live with about 11 and a half. And so I no longer had that nurturing environment. So here he was in the home all the time. And he was that person that just was so friendly. I'll take her where she wants to go. I'll walk her to the park. I'll ride bikes with her and all those things. And so he grew me into this understanding that he was my friend. Yeah. And so when he began to touch me, although I knew it was wrong, when I told my mother, she blamed me for it. So that just continued the abuse because now I had no ally, I had no advocate.
That just did something to me. I will, and again, it's probably not for me to understand, but that just made me feel some way because you're her child. So let's go there. You're her child, and when you told your mother, this man is touching me, and how did that make you feel?
So at the time, so because I had endured, I knew that the relationship between my mother was just not right.
Mm-hmm.
Unfortunately, she just did her thing the way she did it, and was forced to kind of raise me at the very end for a couple years. So I didn't. I just felt that she was not going to protect me. Period. And so I believe, and I'll share this because there may be someone that's watching. I think that what happens with children sometimes is we internalize what's happening to us and we find a way to make it okay,
Mm-hmm.
even though we know it's not. But when we do not have an ally or we do not have an advocate to speak on our behalf, we find a way to manage the pain or mask it by accepting the behavior and partially giving into what's happening so that it doesn't get any worse. So I was resentful towards her during that time because I felt like this guy was touching me and he's still hanging around the house. Um, so I started to avoid him at all costs. But by that time, the process had already kind of just taken off, and so he had an expectation. So I think that what happens with young kids, unless you get help and someone intervene, then you begin to be caught up in this cycle, i.e., what we see now, like sex slaves, and then they begin to be sex workers.
Yeah. So I'll never understand. I mean, as for me, and having a daughter and her being so young, I believe everything to come out her mouth, and I'm questioning everybody. I don't care.
Yeah,
So, ladies, so you want to tell me? I go to the person I said, "So you want to tell me something?" No. Well,
right.
Kate. Well, lady said,
Yeah,
and this is what happened. Let me. Yes or no? And I'm watching body clues. I'm watching your eye. I mean, if you're gonna scratch your
yeah,
nose, if you're gonna blink twice, I'm trying to find something that just don't seem right. And if it don't sit right, my fish just ain't come back around you. That's point blank in the
I
period.
agree.
I mean, I'd
I
rather
agree.
lose a friend than lose the trust that I have in my daughter. Like,
I
I'd rather
totally
her
agree.
feel like I'm a safe haven for her to come to and to talk to. And I tell her all the time, there's nothing that no one can say that should make you feel that you can't come talk to me.
Right,
At
right,
any moment at 2 or 3 o'clock. I don't care if it's your auntie, your daddy, your TT, if it's anybody. If you feel like I've done something wrong to you, she love to tell on me. I mean, I don't care. I'd rather you go and tell someone else who was safe, rather go tell, your godmom, and then she come back and tell me. As a parent, you feel like you're the best parent on earth. But if I've done something
right,
to hurt you or to harm your feelings, um, beyond just the regular parenting, then yes, I
right.
need to know, because I never want you to feel as if you can't come and talk to me. So when you say he began to touch you and he was the first one, was your touching intercourse or was just more so a fondling?
So at first it was just fondling. At first, and I don't want to say just as in to minimize, but at first it was
No.
fondling. And then later on, he introduced me to sex. And again, remember, like I said, he was small in stature. So in my mind, I knew this was wrong. No one was listening, and now this is what's normal. And I began to avoid him because it was wrong, and I was angry, and I had no defense. I had nothing, and he was still around the house. So I was living in a new city at the time. I had nowhere to go, so I had nothing. And so this went on for a little while, unfortunately. And what I believe it does again is it play because you're still a child and you're still developing. And one thing I want to make sure that I share in that first experience was what my mother used to tell the men that came around, because she always had men around. Always, it was an unhealthy environment, and it was only about 4 years I lived in that environment, but it was an unhealthy environment. But she would tell men, "Oh, she's fast," and I wasn't fast. The problem was that I was a target, and so men would interpret that as an opportunity, because that's what pedophiles and predators do. They seek out opportunities, and one thing that they look for are vulnerable opportunities, right? So that's a vulnerable person, and I'm a predator. And so everyone around here is saying she's fast, whether she is, or even boys, whether they are or not. I'm going to try it and see what happens. And that's exactly, I was set up for that experience because my mother just mishandled her parenting with me.
Okay, so we have a question right now from Miss Sophia. She said the question I wanted to ask early is, have you ever felt compassion for the person who sexually abused you, and once you work through the healing and forgiveness, once you work through, so we'll speak to this first person who you're speaking of. Did you ever feel compassion for that person?
No, what I thought I felt was love for that person, because I had been groomed to believe that he was the only person that was going to look out for me.
Did he tell you that?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And that was a horrible message that I had received because I knew it was a faulty message. But again, I didn't have an ally. The way I broke from that was probably about 8 or 9 months afterwards. Was when I moved to a different area, because again, my mother was, she was strung out, and so we did a lot of moving about for a while there. So when I moved to a different area, I went to a different school, and I met my godmother. At that time, just a regular little old white lady running around the school as a guidance counselor. And here I was, this kid that had been enduring this type of abuse. And I needed someone to talk to. I needed someone to understand what was going on. And I remember going to her office one day, and we just began to build a relationship. And finally, the more she poured into me about my value, the more I realized that that truly was wrong. Everything that I had been enduring was wrong. And I totally broke free from that. And feeling, compassion towards him, no, I was angry. This is a grown man. He knew better, but he saw an opportunity, and I never got a chance to confront him before he died. However, because this happened not just from one person, however, what I did do in my healing process was go back to those that did harm me, that were still alive, and I let them know that I know what they did to me. And I let them know that it was not correct, it was not right. And then I let my family know what happened by name. And that was all part of my healing, because lying and suppressing it and holding it was only keeping me chained to the pain. And I refused to do that.
I love that. Chains of the pain. That should go on a shirt. Um, um. So, how many abusers did you have?
So if I look, I had to write it down. But One, two, three. So there was four different abusers, and it was all during the 4.5 years of living with my mother.
Were they all males?
Yes, all males.
And so did you tell your mom about the other three after you shared with her what the first one did?
So the first one I told her about. The second one, actually, unfortunately, I was a victim of rape, and this is interesting. I'm having this conversation because 10 years ago I couldn't even say it. I knew it. I could talk about it with just a few people, but 10 years ago I would never admit to being a victim of rape in this manner and just say yes, I was a victim of rape. But thank God for my healing.
Right.
So yeah. So after I was raped and my mother turned. See, my mother, I was, again, I was a tomboy, so I'm out playing. This was after molestation, after I broke free from the first person. So I'm out playing, and my mother brought home a gentleman because she wanted to get high. And so she brought this gentleman home, and she put me out of the house and locked the door for me to stay out the house. And so, I was a kid that grew up, had to play outside. And so I remember he came back outside and said, hey, your mom want me to take you to get a drink for her or something like that. And my mom said, yes, go get it. And in that moment of me going to do that, he assaulted me. And when I came back to the house, well, first I went to a church, which was around the corner. I went to the church and I let them know what had happened. They took me to my mother. So I go to my mother's house, and my mother was like, I don't know what she's talking about. There was no man here. That was the moment I said, I'm done. And I became an emancipated minor about 4 years, but at 16. So it took me about 2.5 years to get from under my mother, because I said, never again. I will never go to the person that's supposed to care for me, take care of me, and love me, and see that I've been assaulted and then deny it ever happening, ever getting help, ever even knowing the person that assaulted me, even though she brought him home. So that was the turning point for me. And I said, I need to have my own voice. And so I utilized, my relationship with my godmom that I was speaking about. I utilized my relationship with her to empower myself and to get help and to get treatment and to press charges where I could and to become an emancipated minor.
So you became an emancipated minor at the age of 16. So who'd you go live
Yes.
with?
So interestingly enough, I actually invited the lady in today to watch, and I don't know if she is watching or not. I'm not gonna call her name because I don't know if she's gonna tune in and watch or not. But once I was going through that process, I was spending a lot of time at her house. I was babysitting for her sister. I was working doing the babysitting. I was still going to school, so I was staying still with my mother until it totally. Like to my last legal documentation was having to kind of be processed. And then I went and stayed with my sister for a while. And from my sisters, at about 17, I got my first place, and I never looked back.
It's a lot, Queenie.
It's a
It's a lot.
lot. It's a lot. I got a whole book in the process. It's a lot. It's a lot.
It's a lot. But I'm so grateful and thankful that you're sharing that, because when I tell you, you just don't know how many people are just like you, who have gone through things just how you gone through. And just like you just said,
Yes,
10 years ago, you couldn't speak openly and say that you
that's
were
right.
raped. You couldn't speak openly and
Mhm.
say these things had happened to you. So I don't know. I know you probably know it, but I mean, that's a tremendous, achievement that you have made. Like,
Yeah.
kudos to yourself. Like, pat yourself on the back, because many people will share, like you said, one-on-one with you,
Mhm.
right in your inbox, but to come on here and
Mhm.
share with the internet, the world wide web, many people who you don't know, and share all your dirty laundry, like that takes that shows you where you are in your healing process. And so
Yeah.
again, I just want to say thank you, because I know that someone on this live who again may never make a comment, but will see themselves in you and like, okay, that happened to
Right.
me. Okay, so
Right.
she did that, I can overcome too. So
Oh, absolutely.
that was man one and man two. So these other two had to take place when you were from away from your mom.
So no, no, they didn't actually. They took place like it was like right after. It was right after, because I was raped at about 12 or 13. Yeah, 12 or 13. I was still living with my mother at that time. Told her, I said, I'm not speaking up anymore. That was a problem, because when she denied the rape happening, it again opened the door for my sister's boyfriend to then begin to molest me. So now, if you think about that timeline, early on, first incident, then I'm raped, then I'm still having to look at my mother because no one's taking the time to say something's wrong with this lady, right? And everything, it took time for my godmom to kind of intervene again because she was a school counselor. So there's only so much she could do, because she really needed to know what was happening in the home. So during that time, I'm still living at my mother's house, and the boyfriend of my sister comes into my room. He's doing his thing. I have no one to tell, so I use my ally, which is my godmother. And she kept trying to help me find a way out. Short of her adopting me herself, short of her adopting me herself, she was trying to give me avenues, and I was just trying to reach 16. Like that was it. I had amazing girlfriends. Again, I was in the hood for like 4 years. I'm very thankful for being in the hood because girl, they built me with some resilience up in there. It was 4.5 years, but let me tell you, I learned a lot real quick with them. And so my girlfriends, I was able to share with them. But in the hood that I was living in, a lot of the girls was going through the same thing. So this was kind of a cycle, and I wanted completely out. Like I didn't want to even be in the hood anymore. I wanted out, totally out, because what I thought was this was what was normal. And it didn't feel good, but everybody was experiencing it. That's why young girls was pregnant at 13, 14, 15. That's why they were pregnant by, soldiers. That's why they were pregnant by people down, uncles and neighbors, because this was normal. And it was just really mismanaged parenting. And so when I endured the next time, that was it. I was like, I'm out, and everything I did in that moment was to get out. And I spoke up then, but nobody was listening but my friends. And so, of course, when they saw the boyfriend down the street, they be wanting to jump on, cuss him out, cut him up, all that stuff. But the people, right? So those are my roadies, and I'm still friends with them to this day. They know my story. Those that are still alive, they all know the stories, because they went through it with me. But when I finally left home, I remember my mother trying to get me to come back. And I told her, I said, I'll never come back. I would never come back. All the things I endured living in your home, she never once apologized. And that was the most hurtful thing, because again, it doesn't validate the pain that you are feeling and the things that you've gone through. Instead, they just deny it, or they make it seem like it's your fault. And that was the hardest part of the healing. It was the trauma from the actual assaults was bad enough. But when you got people that's supposed to love you and care for you and protect you, and they don't do anything, nor do they speak up on your behalf, that's the most painful part of it.
Yeah. I I remember when I wrote The Girl Who Died at 7, and I
Yes.
had to tell my mother, unlike you, I didn't have the courage to tell my mother when I was young or when it was happening or when it happened, because it happened when I was young. I was 7 years old. And so I know after I told her, and I tried to tell her all throughout my life, and I wouldn't let Lady go and stay the night with my mom. If she did, she only could stay a couple of days, and I'm calling every hour. I was on
Yep.
pins and needles until about 2 years ago when I finally opened up and I shared with her. And one of the reasons, because I know my mom, she's hood, and she about that fighting life. I mean, she settled down now. About 7, 8 years ago, she finally settled down. But I knew that it would tear our family apart. We were already a distant family, and
Yeah.
the relationship that we did have, I wanted to save those. But then, as my daughter, approached the age of 7, I was like, okay, what if this happens to her? And I did not want it to matriculate down to my daughter. I didn't want her to
Right.
have to endure the same things, and so I was using it as an excuse, but also understanding that it was a part of my healing that I had to tell.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
And I was using her as an excuse because I was still living in a place of fear myself. And so I
Hmm.
was 30 years old before I actually shared with my mother. And for the first time, when I got on the phone with her, I'll never forget, August 18, 2017, all she said was, do I need to sit up? And she never once interrupted me. And I shared with her more than I expected to.
Wow.
And did it tear our family apart? Yes. Did the person who was accused of it deny it? Absolutely. Do we speak to this
Absolutely.
day? No. Um, and even after it happened, they blocked me on all social media. We don't talk anymore. And then, even if I said it, if you didn't feel guilty, then why'd you go to the extreme? You
Hmm.
reached out twice to try to talk to me, but the fact that you lied to my mother and said it didn't happen, So I'm just lying on you.
Right.
And so I will never understand. But then, as for Miss Sophia asks, yes, I felt compassion because for me, the person who abused me had also been abused. And so it became one of the things where I truly believe that it was a learned behavior. And because they had
Right.
not been truly healed themselves, they were just acting out. Now, so for me, it was a female relative. And so
Mm-hmm.
it happened from to them from a male relative. And so I also did not share with my mother because when this person tried to go tell her mother, she denied her. She also said it didn't happen. She was one of
Yeah.
you. And so
Yeah.
I really believe that for me, my mother would feel the same way. And or she
Mm-hmm.
would hurt her. I mean, it was just one of the two options. It really wasn't any in between. Um,
Right.
and so for my mother and I, we kind of have a strain in our relationship because of that. When I talk about my book, she goes to the other room. She just finds other ways to deter from it. But I had to sit her down and let her know, like, Mom, this isn't your fault. I have come to a
Right.
place, and just with generational things, I'm at a place where I believe that you only did what you knew that you could do. You only raised me to the capacity what you were exposed to and what you were willing to do. Like, I don't blame you. So have you gotten to that place with your mother that you don't blame her, or is it still some hard feelings there?
So my mother passed away a couple years, about 5 years ago, and our relationship was strained. And it wasn't just because of the sexual assaults that happened under her watch, but she was just abusive all the way around. And I don't know. I know you're in one of my rooms, and I might have spoke there. My mother was a narcissist as well, and so she had a mental illness that it was unmanaged. And so if you'd asked me this 10, 12 years ago, I was still angry. She was still alive. I had cut all ties with her. However, if she ever needed me, I was always there. And she still was still very, I guess she still mistreated me. I was just that kid that she just mistreated because she didn't raise any of us. So I was the one that she was forced to raise. So if you'd asked me this some years ago, I was still working on forgiving her because I was still trying to find the value and worth in myself. And
Mm-hmm.
so at some point, she called me up and she gave me some apology that said, I apologize for whatever you think I might have done to you. And that was probably the worst apology ever. And in that moment, that was when I released it because I realized that no matter what I really desired from her, she was not in a place and she didn't have the capacity to give it to me. And so I was able to then forgive her for who she was, and not really being able to provide me with what I truly needed. But I was blessed. And so I was blessed because even though I didn't get it from her from birth. I just kind of landed in her lap, at 11. And I was able to receive it from so many other places. My grandmother was an awesome, awesome example of what love looked like. She just got sick, and then after that, my godmother was even more awesome. And so I released my mother at that moment, and I tapped into what I was blessed with. So sometimes I believe you have to let go of what you thought or what you thought you wanted, and hold on to what really is, right? And then to really be grateful for that, because I was blessed with an amazing group of women, that were protective of me, that were pouring in healing and were pouring in nurturing experiences to my life. And so those people, it helped me to be able to forgive her. And then later on, when I began to study sociology and psychology, is when I realized that, what, I've always said that my mother had a mental illness that was undiagnosed. And learning in that space, I began to see her in my studies. And I was like, you know what? I knew something was wrong. So that too allowed me to forgive her even more, like release her even more. And then she passed away. And when she was in her process of transitioning, she and I was on the phone, because the hospital called everyone in, and I was up here in Northern Virginia, and she was in North Carolina. Excuse me. And so what I did was, in that moment, I spoke with her, and I said, you know what? Her nickname was Peaches, and I said, Peaches, I said, I want you to know that we're good. I said, I forgive you for everything. We are good, so it's okay. And I lied to you not. The family that was in the room can bear witness. My son and my daughter is in my car. Probably about 4 or 5 seconds later, she expired. And in that moment, I released it. At her funeral, I had no real emotion, because I had already gone through all of this. but it really allowed me to see how far I had come in my own healing process and not really holding her to any of this. I'm aware of it, and I love to make sure that people know that parents, we have a responsibility to our children. And she just didn't do well with that responsibility. She didn't do well with it, and maybe she just wasn't able. Again, like I said, she's narcissistic, and she had other mental illnesses going on, so she wasn't truly capable either. Uh-oh.
So Sophia came back and she said, so when my cousin told, no one believed her, and I decided to keep quiet. If they didn't
Mm,
believe her, why would they believe me? And so Queenie did speak to that, Miss Sophia, and she was stating that in her first abuse, she tried to tell her mom she didn't believe her. She said that it was her fault. And then in her second time, her mom had, so it happened 4 times and throughout the 4 year span that she was with her mother. And each time her mother was grooming these men to say that her daughter was fast, making her a target. And so when
right.
Queenie went to try to talk to her mom about that, her mom did not believe her as well. Um, and so Queenie, she said, some of her mother has passed, and she had forgiven her, and that's kind of thing. This is where you came back in, and then she had forgiven the other man in her past, for the hurt and for the hurt and the trauma which they put on her.
Right.
Um, so would you like to answer her question? Why do you think that it's
Yeah.
important to tell even if they don't believe the person who it actually happened to?
Yeah, so I'm reading Sophia's question. I'm just reading it, and I'll be honest with you. It looks like what Sophia is saying, that someone came to her and spoke to her about it, correct? Yes. So, Sophia, for me, my godmom was an ally for me. And so if I'm reading this correctly, it's like you were put in a position to be an ally for someone else. Um, I believe that we can take it upon ourselves to advocate for the person that does not have a voice. And because no one did it for me. My godmom helped me to find my voice, and she kind of was behind the scenes voice. And the other lady that I spoke about, that I used to go to her house, she spoke up to my mother. Um, so I would say this: even if no one believes, the victim needs to know that someone believes them. And that is what empowered me, was just believe that what I'm saying to you is true, because that's the hard part. If no one believes you, it leaves you open for more abuse. So if you don't, so again, I mean, if there's no one going to be there for you, then you may just go in silent and become, sometimes I say in my other room, instead of a victim, you become a volunteer for the abuse. You understand what I'm saying? Because no one's really there to help you. She said they had done the same thing. Family tree. You know what? Listen, sweetheart, I get it, but I will tell you, I'm just going to be very raw and very honest with you. At some point, you have to let the family know that my voice matters and what happened to me is real. And if you guys can't deal with it, then I really don't give a, you know what, because I had to get to that place. And it's
Absolutely.
hard. And I don't know where you are as far as like where you live. And because I know, I'm in the city. I know sometimes down south is a little different
Yeah, they,
culturally,
we conservatives here in the South, Queenie, and I look at some people like, I don't give a flying flip flop if you don't like me. I said what I said, and I don't give a, and if I said it, then I meant it. Who gonna check me? You
Yes,
don't like me?
because
If you don't
I
like
know
me,
it's
oh
different.
well.
Girl, I know it's different. And not
Yeah,
just that, but let me
that
also
they
add
start my
in.
nerves sometimes in this
Yes,
Bible. It's
let,
like, oh, you listen.
let me add in the religion piece too. So again, if you're in the South, you're church goer. So you got all these different layers of why we're not speaking up. I broke through all of that. And truthfully, my voice wasn't truly respected because it was heard. It wasn't respected until many years later. So much like you said you were 30, Victoria, I get it, because probably in my 30s was when I was the most loud about it. Like I'm like, I mean, I was confronting everybody. You know what I'm saying? And I needed to get the pain out. So Sophia, I would say to you, it's hard because the cycle has already happened. Like it happens to you, no one says anything, then someone comes to you, and then you pass down the same thing, and then and these perpetrators just continue to do the same mess because we're not talking. And in our Black community, we need to be talking, because we have been given that whole what goes on in the home, stay in the home, and this business is nobody business and all this other bull crap. And our people are suffering because we're not talking about the victimization that's going on in our homes when it comes to child abuse and sexual deviance. These are things that we need to be talking about so we can help to prevent them. Because I'm telling you, when you got an abuser sitting in your house amongst you and you begin to speak out about it, oh, their ass gets very uncomfortable.
Real uncomfortable.
And that's what we need. We need them to be uncomfortable. We need to drive them out. We need them to be uncomfortable.
And just for that, I will add to this. So when it comes to generational curses, and when it comes to that person in the family who's molested everybody in the family, I got to the point from me. The buck stops here. This is not going to happen to my daughter. I'm gonna make sure she's very educated. If somebody touches her in a private area, she, in court, as I mentioned before on another live, your children have to be able to say vagina, penis, and behind or butt, because when they go to the judge or the magistrate, they in their chambers, they have to identify. They cannot say butterfly. They cannot say pocketbook or whatever cute name you use at home. They have to be able to identify if you're going forth to press charges. So understand that. But to say it happened to you, then happened to your cousin. So who is going to be the person that stands up and becomes the advocate for your family? Yeah. I lost a lot of family members, friends, or whatever the case may be, but I gained so many more because for me, it's going to stop here.
Yes.
I'm not going to voluntarily allow for something to happen to my daughter because I decided to keep my mouth closed. No, it needs to be said. In the state of Alabama, I'll mention again, every hour on the hour, there is an allegation against child abuse and neglect. And it's the number 8 health concern here. So at what time do we look back at our children, we say, not them? So it happens to us, but not to our babies. And then you wonder around here why they're trying to commit suicide. You wonder around here they have low self-esteem and they're getting bullied and they can't talk to people. And, they're so impressive, not only because of social media, because we're not having these conversations early enough, long enough, and letting them know that their voice matters. And so until this becomes a continuous conversation, somebody has to stand up and say, not our babies. It happens to us. And just imagine everything that's happened to us. If you can prevent it from happening to somebody else as quote unquote Christians, that's what we're supposed to be doing anyway, is going and telling people about the goodness of God and what he's done for us and the trials and tribulations he's brought us through. So at what point are you going to go forth and advocate for our children?
Yeah, you better preach, girl.
So at what point, like, I look at little girls and I talk to them and it makes me so emotional because they believe that I'd rather give myself away before they take it because it's been taken for so long. Ooh. So now I'm dealing with not only the physical abuse, but now I'm psychologically abused because my mother gave me away so that she can get a hit, or my mother gave me away because she wanted this boyfriend to stay to pay her bills, or my daddy did this to me. My mother stayed. So now you're looking for a daddy in the next man because you never had a dad in home to let you know that you were okay and that you were beautiful in this sense. Yep. So now that we have this next generation going through everything that we went through because we decided, oh, it happened to me and I had to keep my mouth closed. But if you talked about it, it'll make, like Queenie said, it will make people uncomfortable. And so it's not going to change everybody or stop it now, but at least plants the seed that our kids and our babies don't have to go through. You'll be amazed at what children will tell you if you would just stop and listen. If you just stop and listen, or what they're having to endure, or what they're encountering on a daily basis. Right. Like, it's not cute. These girls, I don't believe, you can't make me believe that these girls just came out here being fast. No, somebody told me it was okay for something to happen, and now they're acting out. You can't. You never.
That is right. There's an influence on a lot of those girls, and a lot of it starts right at home and amongst the people that they know, amongst the people that we know. That's where it comes from. Oftentimes they're acting out. And so they just continue. And you said something that, you hit it right on the head. See, when it happens, then you begin.
Yeah. I had a little girl.
And the unfortunate piece,
in the 8th grade.
The unfortunate piece of that is it grows as we even become adults. See, because I think once women have been sexually assaulted, and rape, and this has truly happened to them, then, and no one did anything about it, or nothing was done, or they silenced it, then oftentimes they will give in to everything so that no one takes it from them anymore. And that's the power that they have is, oh, well, so they become very promiscuous. Young girls will become very promiscuous quick, but it's because, exactly, I went through it as well. And I'm telling you, something changed at about 16 for me. I was like, you know what? I am done. Like, this is not happening to me anymore. I took my life back and my body back. And even as an adult, when men have come on to me too aggressively, I mean, I pop off. And I confront them. I call it completely out. I'm telling you, I make them very uncomfortable because I call them out. It's not okay. And I think that what even made it even more I guess uncomfortable for a lot of people that's in my circle is that whenever the Me Too movement came out, oh man, I began to really talk then. You know what I mean? It just made everybody like, oh my God, I can't believe Queenie talking about this again. No, I am talking about it because it's real. This happens to kids, and then they become women, and they're young girls, and they become women or boys, and they become men, and they don't talk about it till 30 years later. And so it's horrible because people still say, well, why are they just saying something now? Because when we said something then, no one listened. So now that I'm old enough and say, you can't take this from me anymore, I'm speaking up. This is my time. It's my time. Because no one was hearing me 25 years ago. You didn't care 30 years ago. You accused me of being fast, or you accused me of wanting to be with the man that was empowered. No, that wasn't it at all. I was a victim of the grooming process and of being assaulted or sexually abused.
Yeah. I can go on. I promise you I can sit on this live and talk all day, all day, all day, because I can identify with every woman as it pertains to people, being molested and or raped, and becoming promiscuous, and then becoming reserved, and then just becoming totally alienating myself from the world because I didn't value myself. Like, I went through all these cycles, because I didn't feel that I was worth anything. Like, okay, so I'm just gonna give it away because at least in this moment I feel love, because I don't feel love in this other area. And so I
and you start thinking that's the only thing that they want. You think that that's all they want anyway.
So give it away.
Yeah. Well, I'm not doing that anymore, but I'm just saying that is how you feel, right?
I'm just saying, right? But that's
I'm like, this thing locked down in a vault now.
Like, real talk though, like, you can get to that point where it's like, wait, just give it away. Everybody else took it, so why not just, you can have it too. It doesn't. Yep. You get to a point sometimes where it's no longer a treasure. It's just, it is what it is.
Yeah. But I'm grateful, and I'll say this because I know that our time is drawing nigh, I believe. But I'm grateful because I truly am a real testimony to having suffered and endured all sorts of abuse from the hands of people that's supposed to love you. And in enduring the abuse, you endure loss as well. But I'm thankful because even in my loss, I gained so much. And now I can stand before you and speak and talk and tell you, yeah, I went through it. I remember confronting my sister's boyfriend. I confronted him and I told him, I know what you did to me. And one of the things that he did, and this just speaks to Sophia speaking about, me, the forgiveness and all those things. And I'm not sure if this is what she was speaking about, but I will tell you, I had a moment with him. We're talking 25, 30 years later. It's when I got an opportunity to speak up to him. I didn't want to hurt my sister. And so I went to my sister and I told her first, this is what he did to me. And this is when it happened, and this is how many times it happened, and this is where you were when it happened, and this is where your mother was at when it happened. And I said it just like that. And I went to him and I said, I've addressed my sister, and he was so heartbroken and shame of himself because he has a daughter now that is a young lady, probably close to my age now, a little bit younger than I am. And he said that he was so sorry. And he asked me would I just forgive him for what he did. And it took a whole entire conversation. I needed him to own up to what he had done. And more so because of just how the abuse happened and how he groomed and how he lied and how he just sit there and was able to continue to live in our home. and how so many years later, I still continue to run into him after having children. My sister still was friends with him at the time, but it's because I had never told, because that was one of the ones that happened after the rape, and I stopped telling. And so that's when I finally spoke up. And I did. I forgave him. And to this day, I don't have any hard feelings. And some people probably say I should, but I don't have any hard feelings towards him. I just know what he is now. And I'm able to call it out. And he knows I know what he was during that time. And so that, again, it freed me up for my healing. So now, I don't harbor those feelings. Now I just try to advocate, and I try to speak to the truth that these things happen, and we need to do better as a people and stop ignoring it and stop acting like it's okay, rub it, sweep it under the rug, or maybe she or he is lying. It never happened to them. Absolutely not. I want to hear what you say happened to you, and if I can help you in any way, in any capacity, I want to do that.
Absolutely.
My screen is probably going dark.
Okay, so just real quick, before you go all the way out, what would you tell somebody? What are some encouraging words you want to leave the people with, and then we're done.
Okay, so I would just say to you guys, just continue to have your voice. Own your truth, no matter what. Own your body. If especially as an adult woman, own your body. Seek the healing, seek the help. Get therapy if you need it. Begin to talk about it. Find your tribe and encourage yourself, and never, ever, ever lose sight on the fact that you are worth it and you are of value.
Absolutely. So you guys, our time is running near. We apologize for getting started late, but we made it. I mean, we made it within our hour, so it is what it is. But you guys, thank you so much again for tuning in, and I want to thank you again, Miss Queenie, for tuning in, because it just hit me with the 15% on mine as well. So we know that this, again, may not be for you, but someone on your timeline. So please do like, share, and comment this out so that we can reach as many people as we possibly can as it pertains to domestic violence, molestation, and rape. And again, Miss Queenie, thank you so much for joining us in the confessional room. You guys, remember that your imperfections make you perfect. You're imperfectly perfect. Ain't nothing wrong with you. So stop questioning who you are and who God made you be, because he makes no mistakes. And then please join us again here next Monday in the confession room at 8 o'clock Central Standard Time, or 9 p.m., however the times go. We're 8 o'clock here. Central Standard Time. All that, don't give me no Eastern and all that other. But no, I say that jokingly. But of course, if you ever want to be a guest in the confessional room, please just shoot us an inbox and we'll put you on the schedule. We are going to take off the month of July, but we'll be back in August and September. We are almost all the way full. So if you want to join in and share your story, we don't have any qualifications. We just ask that your story be your story and that it's truthful and factual, because we don't want to lead the people blind. All right. Yeah. All right, you guys, until next time.
Hey, Victoria, hey, they can find me on Bar Talks, Bar TALKS. I will. I'll put it down there. Perfect.
All right, Queenies, until next time. Love you.
Bye, sweetheart. Love you too.